Hello and welcome to Real Biz. I'm Rebecca Jarvis here in New York City, and here's what's happening today. A device, a new one that tracks diseases in your area to prevent you from getting sick. Also looking out for your kids. Then, ahead of the World Cup this summer, Brazil's plan to prevent road rage and the real story behind jobs in America. We want to get right to it. A parent's worst nightmare for all you parents out there. You get this. Your child gets sick. You understand that's problematic. But imagine if you were able to track what illness was spreading in your kids before they got infected, or at the very first sign of a fever, the relief that you would feel if you knew exactly what the problem was. Well, Inder Singh is founder and CEO of startup Kinsa. It's a smart thermometer that tracks infectious diseases in your area. It's so nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Welcome. You're locally based here in New York City.
We are, yes.
And what is this that you're working with? You've brought it with you.
Yeah, let me show you one of these. This is a smartphone connected thermometer. And it also happens to be one of the least expensive thermometers ever made. So you simply connect it to your phone via the headphone jack or via an extension cord to the headphone jack. And it is a better, smarter version of a thermometer that answers the questions that a parent wants to know at the time of need. What do I do and how do I get better?
So you mentioned it's less expensive than anything else. What kind of money are we talking about here?
I can make this for a very low amount of money. I mean, there's no LCD, there's no batteries, there's no integrated circuit. We use the smartphone for everything. And so this is, I can make this for under $1.
Under $1.
Absolutely.
And what can I buy it for? That's the question consumers want to know.
We're still experimenting with that. We certainly want people to believe that there's a lot of value with this, so we don't want to price it too low to begin with. But as demand grows, we will definitely bring the price down. Right now, you can buy it and you can pre-order it on our website for $20.
$20.
Sure.
And what's it going to tell you?
So the software is what really tells you some cool stuff. So not only do you get a fast, accurate fever reading, right? Not only does it do things that other thermometers can't do today. So for example, it'll tell you whether it's slipped out of place with a nice frowny face that appears. You can also, after the fever reading is done, you can, with a few simple taps, track your symptoms over time. And now you can pull out your phone when you go to the doctor and show the doctor your full history so that you can get a better diagnosis. But it goes beyond that. So as an example, we crowdsource information. So you can join a private group with other parents, for example, at your child's school, and now see the level of illness and see what illnesses and what symptoms are going around in real time. And so you can actually respond much better to your child's illness.
So 4 o'clock in the morning,
sure,
your child is throwing up, running a fever, rather than going on WebMD and trying to figure out what this might be.
Sure.
You're taking their temperature with this, you're getting a read, and then you're also seeing that 9 other parents are dealing with similar symptoms in your area.
Absolutely, and you may even see that several of those people have strep throat, which is going to cause you to react in a very different way than if it's the common cold.
How about privacy? Because, we're so concerned about it for ourselves, but for our children,
sure,
even a bigger deal.
Absolutely. So we are very conscious of that. As people who come out of the healthcare industry, we've embraced the idea of privacy. So we don't take any personally identifiable information from you at all. You're not even allowed to tell us your email address by default.
This would also apply, obviously, for adults. Adults get sick as well, and it's something, I certainly have gone to WebMD in the past and looked up what my symptoms are, and this is the kind of thing that I could see being useful to me as well. But at the same time, when you're really, really sick, how much reading on your phone or inputting of information on your phone do you really want to do?
It's true. I mean, that's the whole design experience behind this. The user experience, it's very simple. A few simple taps, make it easier to take a temperature, and we've built some of those design parameters into the software. So I think the best way to get a feel for it is to use it.
Just use it. There's so many, when you think about being a startup, as you are, there are really difficult things, big challenges in front of getting off the ground. What would you say has been the biggest challenge for you getting this off the ground?
Finding the right people is always a challenge. For us, developing the technology was a bit of a challenge. This is a FDA-regulated product, so you have to go through that process.
Which is long.
Which is long.
And you have to have the money to be able to sustain through that process.
Absolutely, and you have to raise the money against that. So those are a few of the big challenges. But finding the right talent is always the biggest challenge. If you find the right people, things work out.
And how about the medical community? Are they embracing what you're putting out there?
Yeah, they are very much embracing it. We're really excited that they're embracing it. So some of the big luminaries in healthcare and experts in tracking the spread of disease have come out to support us. But what I care about, honestly, Rebecca, is more than the experts, is the moms. If they don't love the product, then it's not going to be used.
Everything that comes back to the consumer has to be a consumer experience that people are going to adopt. Otherwise, you can talk all you want about how great it is, but if people aren't using it and using it easily, it's a problem.
Absolutely, it's a huge problem. So we're really trying to focus on making sure we add value to parents.
So 5 years from now, where do you want to be?
5 years from now, I want to have millions of users. 5 years from now, I hope that we'll be able to track the spread of disease in real time for the first time in history and potentially stave off some major epidemics and problems. The flu has had less of an impact on populations, and we want to be a source to health systems, to the World Health Organization, to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, to really realize this vision of a real-time system to track the spread of disease.
So it's called Kinsa.
It is.
People can find it on your website.
Absolutely.
Kinsa.com.
KinsaHealth.com.
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 Inder Singh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Best
Rebecca.
wishes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we know this one. Being stuck in traffic, it is brutal, whether you're a passenger or a driver, and especially when you're the one that picked the lane that's not moving and everyone else is just speeding by you in the lane right next to you. Well, if you've ever been to a major sporting event, getting around can be even worse, and that's why Brazil is tapping the widely popular road app Waze to map out the traffic during the World Cup and the Summer Olympics of 2016. So here to explain is Diane Eisner. She is head of global platforms and partnerships at Waze. Diane, thanks so much for joining us from Palo Alto this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I've actually been using Waze for some time now. My husband and I use it a lot when we're driving to try and get around the traffic and also spot where the cops are and the speed traps are on the road. For those who aren't familiar with Waze, tell us what it does.
Okay. It's a navigation and real-time traffic application that's all entirely crowdsourced. So the more users we have, the better chances that we're going to be able to give you a route that takes you on a route that helps you get around the traffic and hopefully as quickly as possible get where you need to be.
Yeah, one of the really cool things about using Waze is that, you may have an app already on your phone that shows you directions. What Waze shows you is where the traffic is, and then there's suggestions from all the other users who are around you going the same way that you're going for how to get there faster and alternative routes. You're also looking at this for Brazil because traffic in Brazil already is a nightmare, but you add in World Cup and Olympics and it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, I mean that particularly in Rio, where we've been concentrating our efforts, traffic is horrible. It's a growing city. It's experiencing a lot of economic growth. But not only that, the infrastructure is changing so fast, right? So they're building new roads, they're taking down roads, they're changing things in preparation for all this change. And so keeping track in real time of where you can go when has been very, very tricky for the city.
Right, makes a lot of sense because, again, going back to people who are used to dealing with traditional apps that come preloaded on their smartphones, a lot of the time those are based on older maps. What Waze is doing is crowdsourcing the information so that every minute that there is a new road or a new place to go, Waze is capturing that information.
Exactly. And really, because we have so many people out on the road already just driving with the application, then we can really get a good sense of what's happening exactly right now. And that might be different from 10 minutes ago or 10 minutes from now.
We should also mention not long ago, Waze was purchased by Google. What are some of the future plans working with Google?
Well, I think in general, Waze has our own idea of future plans, and definitely the work that we're doing in Brazil and reaching out to see how, beyond just saving each individual time, how we can begin to save time at the city level, I think is a really important part of how we look at how we're going to actually try to reduce congestion around the world. So we're still tackling that really huge problem of get rid of traffic.
Right, get rid of traffic. I think it's whatever. I mean, anybody who's ever sat in traffic ever doesn't mind that proposition. In terms of users, and one of the big things also is not only are users saying where they are, but they're saying who's among them, where the police are, where there are accidents. What's in it for users to actually go out and make that information available?
So in general, I think that everybody wants to help one another, right? At the core, we all want to change the world, right? But we want it to be easy. So we make it as easy as possible, which is basically just turn it on and drive. And then anonymously, we're collecting these GPS traces and timestamps. And so literally just by using the app, you're helping everyone else save time. So that at its core is great. But at the end of the day, people also know that if they're marking an accident, if they're letting us know what's going on out there, then someone else will do the same thing. And it's kind of one of those things where we used to call it crowdsourcing, right? And now I call it mass participation, which is we all want to contribute to making something better as long as it's easy. Yes. And in our case, that's, if I tell someone where the accident is, they're going to tell me next time, and we're all going to save time.
Changing the world one traffic jam at a time. Diane Eisner of Waze, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You've heard it that a number of times jobs numbers are out. Economists fear another round of weak payroll data is going to be reported on Friday. But what does all that economic talk actually mean for families searching for jobs and company growth in America? Eric Schoenberg is president and editor-in-chief of Inc. magazine. He studied thousands of companies to find the real story behind the data, and he came up with a list of the best companies to work for in America. Eric, it's so nice to see you again.
Becca, it's great to be on camera with you.
Yeah, it's been too long. Happy to see you at Inc. now. And you've done some really interesting research here about the truth behind the numbers. What have you found?
Well, what we found was that, look at it this way. We looked at 100,000 middle market companies. The middle market is a kind of ignored portion of the economy. It's not the big enterprise companies, and it's not the fast-growing little app makers like Kinsa Health or even Waze. It's sort of the heart of the economy, where the job creation really occurs, where a lot of innovation occurs too. And what we found there, when we surveyed 100,000 companies in this sector of the market, was only 1.5% of them were able to grow year after year after year. And it's those companies with sustainable growth, that account for an enormous amount of the job creation in the U.S.
So 1.5% of those medium-sized companies in this country are the ones that are really generating the jobs for the country.
That's right. That's the heart of the economy. That's the engine of job creation.
And what is the unifying trait or characteristics of these companies?
Well, this was really interesting. It wasn't, you would think when you look at it that, well, it's all technology companies, or it's all service companies, or some hot area of the economy. But what you find is that those companies often don't sustain their growth. So what we found was there was no geography, there was no industry that explained it all. It was really their attitude towards hiring, their attitudes towards their employees. It was a focus on soft attributes, a focus on people.
A focus on people, which, by the way, I think a lot of people who are listening to this are going to appreciate hearing that, especially if they're working for a company that they feel like doesn't focus on the people.
Well, that's right. Well, those companies are probably leaving some money on the table, because what we found was that the companies that are the most generous, that are the most conscious about things like transparency, about taking care of their employees, about being conscious of culture, actually get a real return in terms of growth.
So they're doing better. To anybody who's a hiring manager out there, the companies that are doing the best in America right now are the ones who are focusing on their employees. They're focusing on the corporate culture.
If you want to look at, if you measure doing well in America by having sustained growth year after year after year, and then we're looking back 5 years, which were 5 pretty tough years in the economy, then what you said is exactly true.
It's this is a surprise to me, Eric, because you talk to companies all the time and you assume that it's going to be that sales were going gangbusters, and we hear these words, supply, demand, these economic terms, but at the end of the day there's something else here. It sounds like almost core values.
Well, that's true. These companies pay a lot of attention to that. Let me give you an example, if
I'd
I
love
could.
that.
All right, so there was a company called CPO Commerce. It is an e-commerce site that sells power tools, and it's based in Pasadena, has a distribution center in Georgia. They went through a kind of disruption that a lot of companies have. They changed their software platform and everything blew up. Inventory was piling up in the warehouse, and customers were getting upset. It took them 6 months to get through this, but through this 6 months, there was absolutely no turnover. And what happened was that they were completely transparent with their employees about what was going on, down to the inventory pileups, down to the financials. And what that did was, it told the employees, first of all, that the managers are not making this up. They could see the numbers right there. It also helped put more brain power on actually attacking the problem. So people who were in the warehouse, people who were really kind of at the interface with the problem, could actually see how that translated to the numbers and could come up with solutions that would make the biggest difference.
It's interesting because you mentioned 6 months. And in Wall Street's terms, 6 months is an eternity because all of a sudden you're at the quarterly report. And if you're being honest and transparent and saying we're going to have some slow times, that's not what any trader wants to hear. That's not what investors want to hear.
No, that's right. If you have to answer to Wall Street and the quarterly monster, it's going to be very tough to do this kind of thing.
Well, it's a fascinating read. Eric Schurenberg, thank you so much. Inc. Magazine, putting out fascinating stuff.
My pleasure, Rebecca.
Great to see you. And thank you so much for joining us on Real Biz. We want to hear about what you think about Kinsa's smart thermometer. Would you participate and log in your sickness? Tweet us at RealBizWithRJ. Until next time, this is Rebecca Jarvis from New York. Have a great one.